Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Nashville Severe Weather's coverage of a severe thunderstorm happening in the eastern portion of Davidson and Williamson County. I'll get my screen shared up here and we'll take a look at this thunderstorm as it crosses into Nolensville, into the into the Antioch area. Right now, this thunderstorm is passing through the area around Governor's Club, Concord Road, Holt Road in Nolensville. Will be close to Pettis and Old Hickory Boulevard, Cane Ridge, Nolensville High School, Burke Hollow, all very quickly. The severe thunderstorm warning that is in place is warning for hail the size of a quarter. Damage to vehicles is possible with hail this size. So if you've got a car, time to bring it inside if you can. We also may see damage to roof shingles. Looking at the winds on the velocity scan here, we can see winds aren't too crazy. They look like 30 or so mile per hour gusts as this storm moves through Antioch. We could see a few pixels above 30 miles an hour. So really the main cause for concern with this storm is hail. Bringing David in. David, tell us what you're seeing on the radar and what you're telling folks on Twitter. David, can you hear me? David cannot hear me. So we'll come back to him here in a second. I know he's very busy on Twitter putting stuff out. Looks like he just tweeted a moment ago about hail moving through Cane Ridge and Nolensville. So expect that to continue. This severe thunderstorm warning is set to expire at 7:15. So probably another 30 minutes or so, unless they cancel it early. So again, if you're just joining us, we are looking at a severe thunderstorm warning in eastern Williamson and Davidson County.
Testing.
Hey, there he is.
Helps to turn on your microphone.
Yeah, I gotcha. So, David, tell us what you're seeing here, right? We're seeing a warning for potentially damaging hail.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like the wind threat is super high with this particular storm. What do you see?
Yeah, it just looks like the hail got a little bit too big. The heaviest is over by the Governor's Club out near Edmondson. It's past Edmondson Elementary out in kind of north of Nolensville. And it looks like it's going to cross into Cane Ridge or go south of Cane Ridge. And then kind of move into a little off Burkett Road, kind of in the more rural part of southeast Davidson County. There's another little hail spike there that should go into Nolensville proper, which is over by Sam Donald Road, and then it should exit out at Rocky Fork Road on the other side of the highway there in Nolensville. But I'm with you. I don't really see very much wind in this. The radar that we have from that you're showing there is not oriented correctly to see the wind as well. So I switched over to the one that is, and it looks like 40 mile an hour wind gusts are the max there. A couple of them get to 50, but that's out in Smyrna, which is down in Rutherford County. So I don't really think this is much of a hail threat. Certainly no tornado concerns with this at all. But the hail sizes just got too big, y'all, for the Weather Service to ignore it any longer. Looks like we did have some reports before the storm was warned that the hails were penny-sized. Had a couple of reports of those. And penny is kind of like, as you know, Will, the next step up, or the next step before you get to severe. A quarter, the size of a quarter, the diameter of a quarter is is what you're looking for a severe hail report. And it looked like we're getting enough of an updraft. That's a pretty big storm. The cloud to ground lightning on it is substantial. It's got a lot of it, but it looked like it's moving pretty quickly out. These storms have been moving slowly, about 30 miles an hour over the last, I guess, 2 hours. But this one's going east at 40, which is a little bit faster, which is good. And we don't need to get bogged down into the meteorology, but that makes sense. These storms should start to speed up a little bit more as we kind of hope that the Swifties get to see their show tonight.
Yeah. So the good news about this storm is for us, number one, it's going to rob a lot of energy, right? It'll stabilize us now. We'll talk a little bit more about the meteorology and a little bit more about Taylor Swift concert after the severe threat is over. I do want to zoom out and give a little bit of perspective, though. This severe thunderstorm warning originates mostly along I-65 and spans east. The storm that prompted this warning, which is this curved complex of storms here, is going to move out of Davidson and Williamson County rather quickly, as David mentioned. And once it moves out of our counties, we're free a little bit more so to talk about storms that are happening in other parts of the county. So we'll cover this, and then we'll do a little special coverage for the festivities downtown. David, you mentioned that the radar not being oriented, so we can switch to another radar that we call TBNA. It is down in the on the county line between Davidson and Williamson in the eastern portion of it. And as I move my mouse around some of these brighter colors here, you can see wind speeds around 30, 34, 35 knots. I'll bring up a different program that allows us to sample that a little bit more. But it's good to see that we don't have winds in excess of, let's say, 45, 50, 55 at the surface, because then as we get closer to 60, we'll see some damage associated with that. So zooming in on this product and looking at velocity, whoop. And if we use TBNA here, where's Andrew when you need him?
He's doing something he needs to be doing.
I'm just kidding. He's totally fine. But if we get into some of these brighter colors in here coming from TBNA, you'll see that we're sampling about 40 miles an hour or so. Now this is radar indicated, right? Nobody's measured this on the ground. But it is an indication that through that Pettis Road, Cane Ridge area, we're seeing some of the heaviest wind. I can also tell you that south of TBNA, closer to Nolensville, we're seeing equal wind. So all along this line of storms that's moving through the eastern part of the county, we're seeing winds in excess of 40 miles an hour on radar, translating to, maybe some small twigs, leaves lost off your trees, but no significant thunderstorm damage. Let's pan back out.
Yeah, well, it looks like the hail core has kind of come down a little bit, which means
that's good news.
It was looking really big and strong as it was crossing I-65 over by Crockett Park, where we had the radar was estimating 2.77 inch diameter hail, which is huge for us. I doubt it was that big. That was over by, if you live on Alamo Road, over kind of across the way from Crockett Park, across Wilson Pike, that subdivision over there in Brent Haven, looked like that was probably where the heaviest or the biggest concentration, the highest amount of hail was. And the
Hmm.
largest hail is passing north of Ravenwood High School over to Crockett. And then as it went over the Governor's Club and as it's moved over into Nolansville, um, it looks like the hail is starting to fall apart, which is to say that it's probably not hailing as big or as frequently, or maybe not at all anymore, which is a good sign as the storm is going to move into Smyrna and into that industrial area over there as well. Hopefully
Hmm.
that those hail sizes are going down. So that's good. So it was a pretty good warning from the Weather Service.
Yep. Yep.
Whenever you get an indication of large hail that's that big, sometimes the radar over exaggerates how big the hail really is, but even at a third of that size, that's severe hail. And it was a good warning by them. So, um, yeah, I'm going to actually pull up to her and see
So
what's
while
going
David's doing
on where
that,
you caught that. Yeah.
we'll flip back over to one of my favorite features of the radar software we use, which gives us a volumetric scan and allows us to see up into what might be happening inside of a thunderstorm. And if you'll notice on the screen here, there is a red line just above 20,000 feet. That's the freezing line. And so when we get a lot of that moisture up above that red line, the higher it goes, the harder it freezes, the larger the stone it becomes, and then it gets to an area where it falls. And that's what we see hitting the ground. So you can see plenty of moisture above the freezing line. No surprise at all that hail's being created. No surprise at all that severe criteria hail is being created. And then driven with that wind and rain behind it, making quite the mess. Seeing lots of reports come in of hail on the ground. Lots of really big rain coming in. We can all hear the thunder and lightning. Good news is the most significant part of this storm is now exiting Davidson County by way of Lakewood Village, going through the Four Corners Marina area, Nashboro Golf Club, Percy Priest Lake, and then blowing out to the east. There is additional thunderstorm activity behind it. So in the western part of the county, we can see some additional thunder and lightning, heavy rain, running volumetrics on that storm. We can still see some moisture above the freezing line. We may have some hail. David, you're looking at a forecast model. What do
Yeah.
you see?
Well, I'm looking at if you've been following us at all, the HRRR model, the high resolution model that is everybody's favorite, including mine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, the latest run was showing additional storms forming and just kind of lingering over the city tonight. But that doesn't make any sense to me why the model would say that, because there is no instability behind those models, which is to say, I mean, I guess we don't need to get bogged down in the meteorology, but it doesn't make sense to me that these are going to be capable of producing lightning for very much longer. I think probably after 8 or 8:30, it's going to be difficult for these to produce lightning because there's no CAPE. CAPE is convective available potential energy, which is one of the things we use to determine how much the updraft a storm can create, and the more intense the updraft, the more likely lightning will form because lightning forms with updrafts and stuff. So yeah, I promise we not get in the weeds. We got in the weeds. But it's still got rain like lingering around even through midnight off and on, suggesting that the activity that's up in western Kentucky kind of moves southeast. And as I look at just the radar trend itself and looking at the mean flow of the winds, I'm not sure that those storms are going to come down I-24. I think that they might slide north of us and go east. So I'm just hoping this is one of those infamous May systems where they just kind of sit on a boundary and just generate rainfall. If we get too much more rain, we're going to end up needing an aerial flood advisory at some point, just to account for all this rainfall. The good news is we're very dry, so the ground's not saturated at all. So we can handle more rain than usual. So, I mean, I don't want to say I'm optimistic about the Swifties for tonight, but I think things will improve with time. But that's just one of the many considerations that the people who are running the concert need to consider. And I have no idea what they'll do, or why they'll do it, or even what goes into making a very complicated decision like this. I mean, you got people who've driven all over the region and maybe the country to come here to this show. So it's just a tough spot. It's just unlucky. And we don't have an enclosed stadium here to put 70,000 people. So,
Yeah. I was
that's
just
the
talking,
issue.
got a text from a friend of mine who said, well, this is why, we need an enclosed stadium. And there are plenty of reasons to do it. And there are plenty of reasons not to, but this is certainly a reason to build an enclosed stadium, is because we do have such large gatherings downtown, and some unpredictable, spring and summertime weather. So, David, looking at the HRRR over the next couple of hours, you're thinking that we don't see as much convection as is portrayed in the model currently?
No, I'm not saying. Well, yes, I'm saying I don't think it'll lightning as much.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll probably rain as much.
Right.
So that's not an encouraging sign for people who are over there. So that's I'm just you look at the models, and one of the things that whenever you're in this situation and trying to tell people what to expect, it's easy to get transfixed by the models, but you also have to
Yep.
make sure that what the model says you're starting with is what the radar says. And
Yep.
I'm not convinced that the models are exactly correct. Like I said, I think maybe by 8 o'clock or so, a lot of this stuff could be pushing east.
Yep.
So I just don't know. You have the model saying one thing, I'm looking at it thinking something else.
So we're seeing it on the screen, right? And on the
Yeah.
screen here, this is as of so it is 0Z now. This is 2 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is an hour ago, and this is right now. And what's portrayed on here right now, as overlaid with what's actually going on, we're seeing much greater storm coverage and storm activity than what the model is predicting.
Yep.
And so that model, a couple of things might be happening, right? It could not account for the stabilizing effect that the thunderstorms we're seeing right now are providing. And it could be that it wasn't initialized well, although earlier in the day, I wrote a forecast thread around 3 o'clock or so this afternoon, and the models did look well initialized. They did have this complex sinking down, but models lose their momentum a little bit. So the severe thunderstorm warning is over. In terms of, David, there's 1,000 or so people watching us right now. If you had a wife, a daughter, a sister, a mom, a dad, a brother at the Taylor Swift concert tonight, what would you say to them in terms of, do we hold out hope? Do we cancel our plans? And it's raining so hard, we might as well go home now. What kind of advice would you give them?
No, I would just stay there till the bitter end. I mean, you spent a bunch of money on these tickets. You went down there. They haven't canceled the show. I would stay in my enclosed space, wait this out, and see what happens. I would not leave. I also would not get out of my car and walk down there right now. I would stay in my spot. It's going to take them a minute to get, once this thing clears, and if they're going to go forward, which I hope they do, you'll have plenty of time to get where you need to go. There's a lot of people who are already at the stadium. And I know, Will, your phone's blowing up. My phone's blowing up. I've got friends, kids that I used to coach when they were little who are now adults and who are who are at the concert asking me what to do, and they're in their ponchos hunkered down. So I think that's the move. I would not leave. I definitely would not. I would wait until they make some sort of decision about what they're going to do here. But yeah, I can't offer you any assurances. This is certainly a bad thing. We do have a little bit of history of this with the Garth Brooks thing. This is a different setup than the Garth Brooks concert was. And I really think, again, the models want to linger this rain around, and it just may not be doable from a logistical standpoint. But if I'm there, man, I ain't leaving. I'm staying. The show is apparently awesome. I had family that went last night, and they were like, "This thing's incredible." So
we were down there last night as well. It is a really cool show. Big shout out to the people that made that happen. The situation downtown, most venues have a plan in place. Nissan Stadium certainly does to shelter and protect people. So follow the advice of stadium officials. It's not over till it's over. I know many of you that are downtown probably aren't watching this because I know how bad the cell coverage is when there's a huge concert at Nissan Stadium. But we'll keep the tweets coming. We'll keep the forecasts coming. As we say goodbye, large storm coming through the Forest Hills, Oak Hill area right now, back to the west through Bellevue, down into Williamson County, north of Franklin, coming toward Cool Springs. Expect off and on thunder and lightning and heavy downpours, at least for the next 15 to 20 minutes. And stay tuned to Twitter to see what comes after that. And hopefully everybody can enjoy the last part of their weekend. Thanks a bunch for joining us. Have a great rest of your weekend.
We'll see you on Twitter.